Welcome to Benny's Designs. This is a live stream with live people all having a natter in the chat. It's recorded for Ustream.tv and also for YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. I'm working in a new book that I bought from the Works, and it was £3, so I was really impressed, and hubby actually found it for me on Mother's Day. It's called the Enchanting Fairies colour book, and the artist is Margaret Tarrant, and I believe it was the 40s and 50s, or was it the 20s? The 20s to the 50s, where she was colouring in these gorgeous magical fairies. So I've decided that I want to match the colours. I'm going to work in pastel pencils. So I've got my derwents out. I've done a bit of a colour match. So you scratch a bit of colour until you can see it almost disappear, and you know you're about right. I'm going to start with the background colour because that's what I found. Make sure your hands are clean because pastels are very messy. They're not so bad, but you've got to be a little bit careful with them. So I'm blending with a blending tool. So just need to keep that clean because I've just been playing about with the colours. So a little bit of a baby white rub and then with your fingers, and it becomes fairly clean. So I'm going to zoom in, and then you'll be able to see how we blend. So thanks for stopping by, guys. I hope everybody's okay. Now my camera is actually at the wrong angle, so I'm just going to drop that down. Oopsie. Sorry to make everybody ick. So that should be quite well balanced. Just let me sort the light out a second. That shouldn't be too bad. So I'm just going to go into this top corner, and I don't think I'm going to set it with water as I go along. We'll see how I get on. It depends how I feel. So my background number is dark olive 74F, and I did a colour swatch yesterday, and I've put my piece of paper. Oh no, I put my piece of paper somewhere and I can't find it. So it's got my colours on it, my colour chart that I did yesterday. So apologies that I can't find that. So I could tell you what they were in the different ones, but this one's dark olive F 74F. Oh, that's the wrong colour. It should be green umber 78D. And when I touch that onto there, it disappears. Thank you, darling. Thank you. So I want to be in the top corner, and I'm just going to blend, scratch a little bit of colour out. So there's two ways to do this. You can blend it out with a blending tool, which is what this is, or you can use a damp brush. So it's not quite as dark as I'd like it, but let's have a look and see. Yeah, it's not quite as dark, but I quite like that. So here we have kind of a green, olive green colour. So what I want to do is put the greens in colour order. So if I have the darkest one at the top and then the lightest one that gives me it's just easier when you're looking for your colours. So the pinks, I've only got 3 colours, so that's an easy one. But the greens, I'm using different greens, so and that's that colour. But these I need to put in colour order. Because it's just easier that way. So that looks a bit like that one. So I kind of like that one, so we're going for this one. And I don't have any points on mine. Mine are very dull, unsharpened. Now, it's impossible for me to get. Oh, sorry, I'm not in frame. It's impossible for me to get that to blend that. So I intend to use my little brush. I have 2 little travel brushes that I use. That I keep in my derwent art bag for my pencils. So I have a bit of a damp baby wipe there. So I'm going to actually blend that in, because there's no point trying to blend that in with a tiny blending tool. So I may as well just blend that in like that. So we can move all this. And the other good thing about the pastels is you can really get a big space filled in without any water. Oopsie. So you can get a nice soft blend. Just gently blending down. And then where we've gone over, we want the magic eraser, which is right in front of me. And because we haven't actually set it with water, it will move. And then I use my lovely little soft sable brush to clean off the debris. And then I want to go back in with this olive colour. Oh, I think I've done the wrong colour, have I? Yeah. If you do the wrong colour, again, love the eraser, you can just take it straight off. Oh, hi Debbie, welcome to Bunny's Designs. just used a colour and then completely forgotten which one it was. It's possibly a little bit too dark, that one, but what a strange thing to do. I think that was the one I said. Yep. What a strange thing to do. So I'm going to blend this with a blending tool, but because I don't need a sharp point, so I've gone over that line a little bit, but as long as I only activate within the line, I'll still be able to erase the mistake on the outside. But if I activated the bit on the outside, it will never erase off. So even though I've gone out of the line, as long as I stay in the line with my little wet brush, all should be well. So it's come off. So I always like my little brush. So again, just very softly manoeuvring that across. Don't want any harsh lines, and if you start getting dust, it means you're pressing too hard. Might as well get a good kind of colour thing for this going on, just soft little movements. So it's quite nice for a background, is this. And just kind of blend carefully. So these are really nice soft pastel colours, so again completely different to the hydras I was doing earlier. Ow! Sorry. So we have that very soft pink, but it's not a bright pink, it's kind of a bit of a dull pink. It's definitely not a bright pink. So I've made a mistake there because they're not drawn like that. They're drawn differently. They're actually drawn. So I'll take that off. So they're kind of drawn in clover sections. So we need to clean our little blending tool. kind of blend those in. So my colour seems to be out slightly. I have made it a little bit pink, but the colour's not looking as good. So it's a bit washed out. And go back in there with it's that one. So again, take that one off. It is a very soft colour, but you really, and the nicest thing is if you had a point, this wouldn't be as soft. So I'm using kind of a flat edge. So you do need that, and there's no reason to kind of waste the pencil, because all your shavings and all your things are going down straight down the drain. So again, that tight Yorkshire lass. And this is a really nice, soft, quiet way to work as well. Apart from somebody chomping in the corner. It's feeding time at the zoo. So again, I've just got that little bit of olive colour and the little tiny brush that's disappeared somewhere. So you can manipulate it to a watercolour effect if you want, or you can just keep going and get a nice flat effect. It's whatever you want to do. But it isn't a watercolour, but this pastel dust reacts like a watercolour. So it's now wet, it's drying, and then if you put a damp brush over the top, you could reconstitute it back to wet again, but it's dry. So that's set, but this isn't set, so it will come off in your hands, and the pink isn't set. Now if we set the pink, it goes slightly darker. And so that's now set. So let's have a look at her head. Her headdress is, oopsie, her headdress is pinky purples and mauves. So we need our pinks. So we've got that pale pink at the top. And again, I'm going to do this like I did the Harry Potter. I'm going to put a little bit of colour in everything. And then just keep going until you can't see any white page. It's probably a little bit too red, is that one? I think we have to go with this one. you can look and see where the shadow is and where you think there would be more light than dark. So 3 shades is quite good. So you can blend them to get a lovely blended effect. So clean that. So again, start where the palest is. So you can get some nice... Oh, thank you, Anonymous. Clarissa, thank you. Nice effects. And then just where you've gone over, we can just clean that up a little bit. And I think we could do with a little bit the darker tones in here a bit. Sorry about the feeding time at the zoo. And if you want to keep some of those darks, you can set them. Sorry about that. It's going to be... Somebody's eating out of my dish. So we've got a tiny little bit of a highlight there. Now, they're not the exact same colours, so I'm a bit disappointed that way, but hey ho, it's a colour book. So I think these are going to kind of be the greeny colours. To make it into a watercolour effect. So we've got the background colour. So again, this is another way of working. It's not going to be too strenuous. It's picking the colours. Once you've got the exact colours, you can have a really good play. And the blending tool, there's no stress on your hands whatsoever, which is quite nice. Now this might not come out because it's watercolour. Got to get that pink off, otherwise that pink would be all over. And then blend that into there. So you've got to think about pastel work moving left to right and right to left. So if you're left-handed, you want to start in the top right corner and work down and across, and if you're right-handed, you want to work in the left-hand corner, down and across, sorry. Because you've got to remember that you will put your arm in the pastel and it's not set. So this is all not set. The only thing that's set are the flowers. So again, we're looking for that colour, and I love the fact you get almost flat backgrounds as well, because you can't get flat backgrounds in most things. You can with Inktense, and you can with pastel pencils, and you can with derwent watercolours. You do the same, you just scratch the surface and then you manipulate it with a brush, so with a damp brush. And pastels you can either do with a blender or a damp brush. So again, I like that effect. It's quite nice, easy to do. So again, we need to just make sure we can get all these markings. And then when that's dried, I'm going to go in the background, because there's obviously going to be a background, because we're not going to fill the whole of this together. So again, another little way of working, but really looking at colour this time. And they really are so soft that you're not pressing on at all. So again, really good if you've got poly hands. And this wouldn't work if you were using pastel paper. It just works because you're using Oh, sorry, I've got two anonymouses. I do apologise. So thank you, anonymousie and anonymousie. Right, so I've forgotten about the hair. So again, I want a bit of a... I think I'm going to use chocolate. Just to have a double check. So just see if that's going to be about right. Yep. So again, I just want to play with the fact we can get a highlight and a shadow like we can with everything else, even though it's a pastel. So you can do two ways with this. We can go in with a blender, and where we blend, and we can put a bit of a highlight on that one then. So that one's chocolate. So we have a pale chocolate, so we could put the pale chocolate in there. And we can do two things. Either we can use the little brush to blend it into a watercolour, or we can go in with the blending tool and blend it. So I'm actually going to go in with a little brush. So start where it's pale. And then you can clean the brush. And you have a bit of variation on the hair. Just by a few. Just by a few. Now I have to say that these are softer because this is the vintage set. So they're a little bit softer. So we need a very, very pale one. Now I do have a flesh colour in this. In the new set, we have a flesh pink. That's a pale pink. We have a flesh colour, but I actually want to. She's got rosy cheeks, so she's going to get rosy cheeks, and she's just going to get a little bit of colour. And there is one called Flesh P150. So that's going to give a really nice contrast. And again, a clean brush to just activate that colour. That cheek. Just a bit more up here, and so you can really get a sense of a flesh tone with a bit of a pink tint to it. It doesn't look as good, but so now we need a little bit of the greens. So these were think these were the olive colours, weren't they? These were the, yeah. So we've got the dark olive under here. And so we need the blender. And again, start where it's the palest. And then kind of work around and incorporate the dark. So they're really well behaved, are these pastels. Really think they are so well behaved. And you get the most beautiful blend with very little effort. So then we need that pink back again. And I think I could do with a bit of dark under there. Oh, thank you, Claudia. Thank you. The pastels are so easy. You just scratch a bit, and it just smudges. The only thing you've got to remember is just do palest to darkest, and then if you have such a tiny little space, then you need to go with a little brush. But you get a lovely watercolour effect. Sorry, it's just fidget time, bless them. They've been sleeping all day. And you can get some really nice little effects with very little effort. So again, I really like that idea. So they've actually made a mistake, and there should be a line under there. So I'm going to put a bit of dark. There should be a dark there. I'm going to go in with my little damp brush because it's a bit of a small space, is that? Push that colour around. You can really get a sense of there is a light shadow on there. And so we'll have to do the same on the other side. There's going to be a bit of a shadow under there. And then sometimes a little brush is really good. And you can sort out some nice highlights and shadow. Oh, thank you, Caroline, thank you. So it hasn't taken very long. It's just another way of working, but it's just such a nice, peaceful way to work. And I really like that. I have to say, I'm a bit of a fuddy-duddy for easy things. And I've kind of got... I love these pastels. If you've got poly hands, you can just literally scratch the surface. And you can get some really nice effects. So there's a couple of different ways. One of them you can use a blender, and the other one you can use a paintbrush, a damp rigger, and you can get a watercolour effect. As I say, they are not watercolours, but they react like a watercolour when you activate them with watercolour, and then when you've finished they are set. They do not need fixing with any nasty chemicals. They are fixed just okay. But the trick is to start with the lightest first and then manipulate that colour round. So I've done that one a little bit lighter, but we can go in with darker in a bit if we want to. But the other thing about doing this is it's actually set now. This flower does not need watering. So we can get a little blending tool and blend. I like the blender better, I think, when it's got to be a proper blend. I think you get a nice smoother image. But so if anybody's got any questions, pop them in caps. I'll keep glancing over. Oh, thank you, Suzanne, Caroline. So that's watered coloured, and this is blended. I get rid of the pink. So there's just that little bit nicer blend from watercolour, a water brush. Oops, that must have been wet when I did that, so that was a bit. Got to be very careful. So we've got a bit of a sugar, a bee going on here. So I think we're going to have a bit of orange on it. And then we had a bit of a brown here, didn't we? So find a brown. You've got to make sure that that's clean. And then you just start blending that little bee. And if you want to tone down the orange, you just turn him down a little bit, so now he's not quite as bright as he was. And there's a bit of something on there, so we can use that for the wings, just to colour the wings in, because there was a bit of kind of gunge on there. And then we'll just brighten that up a little bit. And it will come off because it's been blended, it hasn't been set with watercolour yet. So we can go around and just tidy up any little loose bits we've missed. So if I just pull to here, you can see what it looks like so far. So that's what we've done. That's what we've done so far. So she's a bit paler, but it's a bit difficult to sometimes match exact colours. So I've got Melissa and Clarissa, bless it. Welcome to Bunny's Designs, Claudia and Caroline, Suzanne, anybody else popping by? So I quite like the purple colours. I quite like the colours. I'll just do those greens, I think. And then, so again, 2 or 3 hours and it's done. So I quite like that idea that it's not taking kind of forever. And literally just scratching that little bit of colour on. And again, you've got to make sure your blending tool is dry and clean, and then you'll get some really nice blends. So thanks for stopping by, guys. I've got a bit of a problem with that, so what I'm going to just do with that is just mend it. It's my own fault. I tried to blend it when it was wet, and you can never do that. You damage your page. So there we go. There's a bit of damage on that page there. So if you want to set this, and again we can just do those pinks. I'll do the pink skirt, and that should take us up to the hour then. That pink and just my other pink. So if we look at here, we've got pales and then darks at the back. So we want the same three colours, but we want more darks at that side and more lights at that side. So how I do that is I do a bigger space of that one here, and then kind of less there. Kind of more here. And the middle one has got kind of everywhere else. And then the darker one is the one that we're going to take that bit further. So you certainly don't want as much of this one at this side, but you want a lot more at that side. So before you blend it, you know that that's going to be lighter than that side. So you blend this across. Make sure this is lovely and clean, and if it's not, keep going. And then it's got to be dried, otherwise it will rub a hole in your page. So I'll just zoom in and you can see the scratches of colour that I've just made. So that's how lovely that pastel goes on, and then all we do is palest first, and you need to do all pale, to go over all the pale bits first. And don't worry if it goes over the stalk, we can erase that, because again this is not set, this is just a little bit, so we can go into that. So blend all that. And then we're going in where it's that little bit darker. And kind of finish off each petal. So although we don't have a tooth, we can still play a little bit with getting one more little bit of darkness and one little bit of highlight, even though we don't have a tooth. So even though now it looks like, oh well, we could do with a bit more dark, that's fine. So we haven't to panic at this stage. And this is a huge blending tool, so don't worry if you go over the edges again, you can erase it. It's only when you've used water that you've set it. So that's not so bad, but I kind of want a bit more. Oh, bye Melody, thanks for stopping by. So I'm going to take my darkest one again and I'm going to go back where I want it to be darker. In fact, I might even use indigo, which is my very dark put a touch of indigo in there to kind of really give it some oomph. So we can blend that in. Maybe that was a little bit too dark, was indigo, but it's given a bit of depth to this. And then what we can do now is go in with the eraser and put the highlights in. So now when we brush that off, that should look quite nice, that. Oh, thank you, Anonymous. I have been drawing a long time though. So what we've got now is quite a nice highlight on that skirt. We'd possibly take maybe a little bit off. Maybe there's a smidgen too much. But we could do the same with these, is just go in there and just touch. And this is sometimes why you need that corner edge. Rather than just all the tips having a so they've all got a bit of a highlight, and then she's just got a little one on her head. That's all. Maybe on the top of each leaf, and her hair. But remember, her hair has been fixed, and so has her. The eraser can be quite magical. So the eraser can give some really gorgeous highlights. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's my first part of my, again I think that could be a little bit darker maybe, but I'll darken that up when I've finished, because it'll either all want darkening up or I might leave it. It depends on how well the rest of it goes. So thank you for joining me, and that's the end of part 1 of my first The Enchanting Fairies colour book with pastel pencils from Derwent. Thanks for watching.